HOA poured concrete over my ranch path, so I redirected water and flooded their lots. Have you ever poured your entire life into a piece of land, nurturing it, making it productive, only to have its very lifeblood threatened by someone else's misguided sense of order and entitlement? I'm Silas Vance, and my family's ranch, Whispering Willows, is more than just property. It's a living testament to generations of sustainable farming. We specialize in heritage grains and organic produce, supplying local restaurants and a community-supported agriculture (CSA) program that feeds hundreds of families. Our main access, a winding, unpaved path that follows the natural contours of the land, has served us for over a century, connecting our fields to the main road. It's essential, the very artery of our operation. Then, Ms. Genevieve Sterling arrived. Genevieve, the newly elected, self-anointed queen of the sprawling, meticulously manicured Grandview Estates Homeowners Association, saw my ancient path not as a vital agricultural artery, but as an unacceptable rural intrusion. She was all sharp angles and sharper pronouncements, a woman whose perfectly coiffed silver hair and designer activewear screamed unapproachable perfection. Her first official act, it seemed, was to send me a curt, imperious letter demanding the immediate paving and formalization of my access path. It was, according to her, unsightly, dusty, and a clear violation of community aesthetic guidelines. Her ultimate, thinly veiled demand was for me to replace my functional, natural path with a pristine, uniform concrete driveway that would harmonize with Grandview's luxury aesthetic. Her tone was dripping with condescension, her words a thinly veiled threat against everything I held dear. She looked at my working farm, a testament to honest labor, as if it were a festering wound on the pristine landscape she envisioned. I tried to reason with her, calmly explaining that an unpaved path was crucial for managing rainwater runoff, preventing erosion, and maintaining the delicate balance of our organic farm's ecosystem. I even provided studies from agricultural universities on the benefits of permeable surfaces in rural settings. Genevieve merely waved a dismissive hand, her perfectly manicured nails glinting. "Mr. Vance," she purred, her voice a brittle whisper of disdain. "Your rustic methods are simply not suited for the elevated standards of Grandview Estates. We are building a community of distinction, and frankly, your muddy track detracts from our property values. The bylaws are clear. All access points must be paved." Her words, delivered with an air of unassailable authority, left no room for debate. She was not interested in environmental science or agricultural necessity. She was interested in control and conformity. The true nightmare began on a sweltering Tuesday morning, just as our first harvest of heirloom tomatoes was ready for delivery to the local food bank. I drove my tractor, laden with ripe produce, towards my access path, only to find it completely blocked. A crew of construction workers, directed by a smirking Genevieve, were pouring thick, gray concrete directly over my winding path. The heavy machinery churned, burying centuries of natural drainage beneath an impenetrable, ugly slab. A sign, emblazoned with the Grandview Estates HOA logo, declared, "Path Improvement Project authorized by HOA." My heart pounded with a mix of fury and disbelief. They had paved over my lifeline, effectively cutting off my farm's access to the world, trapping my produce and my livelihood. The tomatoes, perishable and urgently needed, sat in the back of my tractor, a stark symbol of Genevieve's petty tyranny. As I stared at the rapidly hardening concrete, a glint of something metallic caught my eye near the edge of the new slab. It was a small, discarded survey marker, not from the HOA but from the county's Historical Hydrological Survey. My blood ran cold. I quickly photographed the scene and then, driven by a gnawing suspicion, I retrieved the marker. Its faded inscription pointed to a series of underground springs and a natural, ancient aquifer system that fed not only my farm's wells, but also supplied a significant portion of the drinking water for the lower-lying sections of Grandview Estates. Genevieve had not only ignored my warnings about drainage, she had deliberately, unknowingly, sealed off a vital natural water flow. And then, a chilling detail, tucked beneath a pile of discarded concrete bags, I found a crumpled, mud-stained blueprint for a new, exclusive water feature for Grandview Estates, a series of cascading ponds and fountains. The blueprint showed that the water for these features was to be diverted from the same underground springs that fed my farm and the lower Grandview homes. The concrete path, I realized, wasn't just about aesthetics. It was a deliberate attempt to redirect the natural flow of water, forcing it towards her new, expensive water features and away from its natural course, all while claiming it was for beautification. This wasn't just about my farm. It was a calculated, high-stakes conspiracy, threatening not only my livelihood but the very water supply of a significant portion of her own community. Armed with this irrefutable evidence, the photos, the historical hydrological survey marker, the discarded blueprint, and my deep knowledge of the local terrain, I resolved to confront Genevieve publicly. I learned she had called an emergency HOA meeting, ostensibly to celebrate the successful completion of the Grandview Estates Pathway Beautification Project and to unveil the plans for the new community water features. I arrived, my evidence ready, just as Genevieve, radiating an almost unbearable smugness, began her presentation, complete with glossy photos of the new concrete path and artistic renderings of the proposed fountains. I waited for a lull, then stood up, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. "Genevieve," I stated, holding up the hydrological survey marker. "I believe this small marker and the concrete you've just poured sheds a rather inconvenient light on your beautification project." Her eyes, which had been sparkling with self-satisfaction, immediately narrowed. She quickly recovered, her voice sharp. "Mr. Vance, I have no idea what you're talking about. This is a private HOA matter. You are disrupting our proceedings." She attempted to rally the other HOA members, painting me as a disgruntled, eccentric farmer, a nuisance to their refined community. As you can see, ladies and gentlemen, this is precisely the kind of element we are trying to remove from our beautiful Grandview. But just as she was about to call for me to be removed, a quiet, unassuming woman named Dr. Anya Sharma, a renowned hydrologist from the State Water Resources Board, rose from her seat. She had been attending the meeting incognito, alerted by a tip from one of my farmhands who had noticed the strange concrete pouring. "Actually, Ms. Sterling," Dr. Sharma interjected, her voice calm but authoritative, "Mr. Vance raises a very serious point. And I also have something to add." She then projected a series of topographical maps onto the screen, clear, undeniable images showing the natural underground water flows and the aquifer system, now completely disrupted by the concrete path. "This concrete slab," Dr. Sharma continued, her voice gaining strength, "is a direct violation of state water management regulations. It has sealed off critical natural drainage, forcing water to reroute, and it threatens the integrity of the aquifer that supplies drinking water to many of you." A collective gasp rippled through the room. Before Genevieve could even stammer a denial, the doors to the community hall swung open. Two stern-faced individuals from the State Environmental Protection Agency, accompanied by a county sheriff's deputy, walked in. They had been tipped off by Dr. Sharma, who had confirmed my initial suspicions. "Genevieve Sterling," one of the EPA agents announced, his voice devoid of emotion, "you are in violation of multiple state and federal environmental protection acts, including the Clean Water Act. The deliberate obstruction of natural water flows and the potential contamination of a public aquifer constitute a felony. We also have reports of forged permits and suppressed environmental impact assessments submitted to the county for this beautification project." Genevieve's face, which had been a mask of carefully constructed composure, crumbled into a terrified, pale mess. Her jaw went slack, her eyes darting wildly around the room, searching for an escape that wasn't there. She stammered, then erupted into a desperate, high-pitched shriek, blaming misunderstandings, overzealous contractors, and a misunderstanding of the paperwork. It was the pathetic wail of a tyrant whose kingdom had suddenly collapsed. Then, a surprising voice emerged from the crowd. Mr. Davies, a long-standing, quiet member of the HOA board and a respected local civil engineer, stood up, his face etched with regret. "And Ms. Sterling," he said, his voice trembling slightly, "perhaps you'd also like to explain why you pushed so hard for this beautification project, not for the community's benefit, but because your husband's construction company, Sterling Concrete Solutions, stood to gain millions from the paving contracts, and you intended to divert the water to create a new, exclusive lakefront property for yourself, all under the guise of community enhancement. The revelation hung in the air, a final, poisoned arrow. Genevieve had been exploiting the HOA not for the community's benefit, but for her own illicit financial gain and personal luxury. The fallout was swift and brutal. Genevieve was immediately stripped of her HOA presidency, her reign ending in public humiliation and a perp walk captured by local news. The EPA launched a full-scale investigation, leading to severe fines and criminal charges for environmental destruction and fraud. Sterling Concrete Solutions, facing legal repercussions and public outrage, immediately lost their lucrative contracts and faced a barrage of investigations, leaving Genevieve utterly isolated and financially ruined. She lost her position, her reputation, her social standing, and faced a future of crushing debt and legal battles. Her karma was a public, humiliating spectacle, a direct consequence of her petty tyranny and environmental vandalism. As for my ranch path, the county ordered the immediate removal of the illegal concrete slab. But the damage was done. The natural water flow was disrupted. So, with the help of Dr. Sharma and a team of environmental engineers, I developed a new plan. I didn't just let the water flow back to its original course. Instead, I strategically redirected the now displaced runoff from the higher elevations of Grandview Estates, using a series of carefully designed swales and permeable channels directly towards the lowest lying, most expensive lots in Grandview Estates, including Genevieve's former property, which was now on the market. The water, unable to follow its original path, began to pool, turning manicured lawns into soggy marshes and basement foundations into damp nightmares. The very lots Genevieve had sought to beautify and elevate were now perpetually damp, prone to flooding, and rapidly losing value. It was a sweet, ironic victory. My farm continued to thrive, its natural drainage restored, while the Grandview Estate's residents learned a harsh lesson about the consequences of unchecked arrogance. I felt a profound sense of vindication, a quiet triumph that justice, however painfully achieved, had prevailed. My farm deliveries continued uninterrupted, the local schools and food banks grateful for the consistent supply. The community, shaken but united, began the process of rebuilding trust and respecting the delicate balance of nature. In a world where bureaucratic power can become a weapon and individual ego can endanger an entire ecosystem and the livelihoods of many, where do we draw the line between upholding rules and protecting nature and public resources? When faced with such blatant disregard for the environment and the well-being of others, what would you have done?